Hello friends, welcome back. Want to truly understand the .NET Core Web APIs for your interview, not just memorizing the answers. So, join us as we explore the essential concepts through the 10 plus targeted questions, providing concise explanation and guiding you to the best response. So come, let's get started. So let's do something interesting and useful, not like the regular question answer videos. So here is what we are going to do. I'm going to present some important questions by going to this course, selecting this .NET Core, and we are focusing on .NET Core Web API. So I'm going to start this question. Let's go over all the 12 questions. By the time you come here and take up your test, you might have more questions, or these are the important things that you need to know from the interview perspective. So when we start, every single question I will explain you the important concepts, so that way you can actually articulate or explain in your own words. That is what the interviewer will look for. There is no hard and fast rule of by hatting something for a specific question. That doesn't work going forward. They always try to test your knowledge, not any question and the respective answers. Alright, so come, let's dive in. I'm going to choose this 12 and we are in the practice mode, and you will see how things works. Let's start the exam. In the first one, what is the bad security practice in web API development? Okay, so these kind of questions, if they ask, you can, if you know answer, you can tell by yourself, or let's say what options we have, right? Using HTTPS. No, absolutely this is wrong answer, because HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secured. Like, it has a SSL layer for securing the communication between the API content that's going over the network. So this is not the bad practice, it's a good practice. Validating user input is also good practice. Let's say returning stack traces in error response, and implementing token base. So implementing token base is absolutely a good secure practice. But here is what the answer is. You should not and never return what happened in your server, like errors. You cannot return those kind of errors. You cannot return those kind of errors in the response, because client will see, whoever is using will see your content, your stuffs are exposed outside. So you should not do that. So I can choose this, click on this, it will tell you why. Revealing internal details like stack trace, DB errors, and all of those things are unsafe. Okay, so that's the reason. All right, the next question is, basically they are saying what is the right way to define a method in the controller that should correspond to this URL. Okay, so let's understand what they're doing here. They have a controller that inherits the controller base. So far good. The route is API/controller, which means before this slash is a domain name. For example here. Okay, so this is a domain name /API/products. How this products came? You see this controller name is products. When you define /controller in bracket, it will actually take this word, the prefix before the controller. So this will form API/products. Now we need to say /5. And by this question, this is a get endpoint. So let's take a look at this. We can go with the right answer here. All right. So this should give us /products/IT or HTTP get. Okay. So if you notice, if you choose this, it will not match this. Why? Because the route is specifically saying it should be /product/5. ID stands for 5. But here API didn't come. So this is incorrect answer. The correct answer is this, because it will actually take this followed by the ID. Okay, so let's see. This is the right answer. The controller route is API/products and ID. So this is the correct one. If you choose this or you've thought of this, it's incorrect, because this will not have /API. It will directly have the website name /product/5. Okay, so that is not what they want. All right, so the reason why you're looking at this question is you should know how the controller and route works for the methods. Next one, what is the most scalable way to handle exception across all of the web API? So you have like 5 controllers, like 7 or 8 methods in each controller, like 45 endpoints. How do you handle it? Can you handle it using try catch in every action method? Yes, but it's a bad way of writing. Return an exception message directly to the client, very bad. Can you use a global exception handling in the middleware? All right, let's take a look at the code. Okay, so for the web API project, if you go to the program.cs, this is the middleware. See, I am using use exception handler middleware. That's a middleware, and I'm writing some logic here. So any exception happens across the application will be caught here. So one single place globally handled. That's why it is right value. This is the right answer. Okay. Now what happens if model validation fails in an API controller? So user is the model property, and let's say user has something like some properties, name, email ID. They didn't send it when they did the post. What happens? That's what the question is. Can you guess what it is? The right answer is any model validation happens if the value, for example, email. If the email is not provided, an email property is there, you will see a 400 bad requests. So in this whole concept, what you should understand is a request is made to the server, okay, but the request is incomplete. The request does not have the required content to for the server to process, which means it is called a bad request. All 400 requests, 400 and change, like especially 400 requests, right? It's called a bad request, and which means that can be corrected by the client and resend it. Okay, so this is what will happen if a model is there, it has some required properties, and model validation fails. It won't even come to the controller, it will directly reject with the 400 bad request. See, that's how it works. See, API controller automatically validates the model state and returns the 400 bad requests. If you're not aware of this, just let me know in the comment section that you learned something new, but that's how it works. Okay, it automatically rejects with the 400 status code, http status code 400. All right, let's move on. What's the recommended way to support API versioning? Okay, so we have seen enough videos in our channel, but we never covered the versioning. So basically versioning, let's understand, right? So today you're doing a business, you have application, you hosted like n number of endpoints. Now these endpoints are consumed by the clients, like they pay you. For example, right, let's take a realistic example. Airlines. You go to skyscanner.com or any third-party website which talks to the airlines and show something. So they will be using some APIs to get the data. What happens if the airlines wanted to change the functionality of the existing API? They cannot touch that. If they touch it, whoever is using will be broken, right? They cannot lose their business. So what they do is the same endpoint, they will version it, meaning once they have a new endpoint, new versioning with the new functionality, they will slowly intimate the consumers that, hey, change from V1 to V2, from V2 to V3. Same endpoint, a little difference in the URL. That's it. That's what it's called versioning. So according to this question, now you understand what is versioning in Web API, and answer is basically in this one, it's all of the above. Query string with the V2, V3 also tells what version of the API it is. That's also correct. You can also have a separate products V2 controller, like just an example. You can also use the versioning packages. So all of the three are correct actually. And when you do this, sometimes you will also get the reference here. You can actually click this, like if you click this, it'll take you here. You can read through more about it. Okay, that's what it is. Next one, why should web API methods use async and return task of I action result? So let's take a look before we check the answers. So let's take a look at any of our endpoints here. Okay, let's say choice controller. You see this, all of this are having async and a task, right? So those who are not aware of asynchronous programming helps us to unblock the IO operation, input output operation. Okay, so when a call is made here, if you do not have asynchronous operations written, the main thread will come and wait here till it finishes. So eventually, right, it will block the more incoming requests. So that's the best idea to have a synchronous call. So to answer to that specific question, you see this one, right? This API is calling a synchronous method. Okay, and you need to use async await so that it will be a non-blocking thread. That is what you need to answer. Okay, it will unblock the main thread, main HTTP threads. Okay, so for example, right, I can just remove this. I can make this as a bad code. Let's do this, right? So if I do this, what will happen? This will become asynchronous code. Now the main call will come, it finishes here, that thread is still waiting, doing nothing. If this takes 5 seconds, 5 seconds the thread is like doing nothing, and then it goes and returns this. Okay, that will eventually make more issues. So in order to make an asynchronous call as asynchronous way of writing, you just use the await keyword before the asynchronous method, and this one needs to be a task of something generic, task of t. In this case, task of I action result. Because we use await, we need to use async keyword. So the asynchronous concept is async await keyword. It has to return a task of t. In this case, it's I action result, and you use the await keyword in front of asynchronous method. Okay, so that way this will not hold the thread till it finishes that work. Okay, so let's go back and see. So in this case, answer is basically it doesn't block anything. Why you have to use? That's the question. It allows better scalability of IO bound work. This is the right answer. None of the other things are right answer. You see this? Async method free ups the thread during IO operation, enables a better throughput and resource usage. You don't need to just tell this. This is for your understanding. As long as you're able to explain why you use async and this one, if you are able to explain why you use async and task, that's it. Asynchronous method needs to have an async keyword and it should return a task of t. That's it. That should be enough. Alright, so the next one is, why are DTOs, data transfer objects, are used in .NET Core Web API? Can you answer this? Any of these things? Just guess it, what it is. But before that, let's take a look at what is this. So I'm going to open up this project, and you can see, if I go to any of this controller called, course controller, okay, what are we doing? This is calling get courses, and it is returning course DTO. What is course DTO? It has only 5 properties. Okay, custom properties, like these 3 properties followed by some 2 extra properties. But if you notice, what we are doing is we are actually calling get all courses. You see this? So this one, let's go here. See, we first call the database, we get the courses. See, this is the courses, but we convert that course into course DTO. Why? Let's go here and see why. What do we have it in course? See, course has these many things created by exams, questions. We don't want it to send all of these things. So you cannot use the database entity directly. Instead, you will create something called DTOs, data transfer object, which means you will create custom properties. The properties can be having the same name or extra properties that doesn't have it in the main property. Okay, it doesn't matter. You will send only the required information to the user. We convert the entities into the custom data object, which is called DTO. So in this case, I just explained you how course entity is converted into course DTO. We send only this information. So now you know why we use, and this is how you can answer by yourself. And here you can see, so to directly map the database entities to the front end, wrong, to control what data is exposed to the client, right? That is what all I was explaining, and it clearly shows you why it is. Okay, it protects the sensitive fields. It doesn't just send everything that is there in our database table. Okay, now next one, what attribute is used to define a web API controller? Okay, based on the initial thing, you can check, do we have controller? If you say controller, it's called MVC, but for web API controller, it is called API controller. Let's go again, go to any of the controller, go all the way through, either controller base or API controller. Okay, not just the controller. If you say just controller, this is wrong. This is for MVC. See, API controller is the right one, and here's the explanation and the details here. What happens if you register a service with add scope in startup? Okay, in interview, right, they'll ask you about 3 types of service life cycle thing that you can configure. One is add scope, one is add transient, one is add singleton. So in this case, you should first know what all of these three things are doing, and then you will be able to answer at scope. So let me explain you. At scope means when a request comes, a particular service. Let's go here. Let's go to the middleware. Let's go and take a look at the example. Okay, here you go. See, at scope. So we are telling the configuration, that dependency injection configuration, that hey, if somebody is asking for iCourse repository in anywhere, like in the injection, then use a new instance of course repository. For every single HTTP request, it will create only one new instance of this. So if a request comes, if this is injected in like 5 places, only once will be given. Add transient. For every single place where they are asking, a new instance is given. That's called add transient. Add singleton, I don't have it here, but basically add singleton is across the application. After the application boots for the first time, only one instance will be there, and that will be shared across everyone who is asking. So be careful when to use a singleton, because it is not thread safe. It can easily get into issues. So you should use singleton only when it is required, and you use only transient when it is required. Add scope is the best one that you use. Every single call, every single HTTP request gets its own objects. Okay, instance of the particular object. All right. So now based on this, you know what it is. They're asking what happens if you do this. A new instance is created for each HTTP request. That is what I just explained to you, right? None of these are applicable. Let's move on. What does this endpoint response to? So we have an iAction result, a method name called create. It is expecting a product as a model, and it is just a post. And what it is doing, nothing. It just returns a okay. Now, what happens is when you call this post products, this is post, right? So this is the right answer. But basically you should understand okay means it will return HTTP status code 200. But the question is what it is doing. Based on this answer, based on this answers, this is a post call, because HTTP post is marked here. All right, next one. What status code does this return and why? See, it's interesting, right? It is API/product/ ID. It is a get product. Let's see. It tries to find the product. If the product is not found, which is equal to null, it returns this. If this is false, it returns this. So here we know OK means returns HTTP status code 200. Not found means it returns 404. So you should be aware of HTTP status code. Not found means 404. Okay, they are expecting a product ID 5. Product ID 5 doesn't exist in database. So according to this code, basically this returns a 404 if product is not found. It doesn't return always 200. This is wrong answer. This is wrong answer. It doesn't throw an exception. This is wrong answer. This is the right answer. And why? You should know why. That's very important. Okay. Last and final questions. When would you use a custom action filter in ASP.NET Core? Custom action filter means action filter. Okay. An action means a web API method is invoked. So custom action filter means basically it is to apply a particular logic before or after the controller execution. Okay, and I'll explain you why. So if you look at this, any of this controller, let's go to this question controller. You see this, there's something called admin role. Admin role is a custom action. On authorization, it is going to execute this. So basically it will check whether it is an admin or not, the incoming user. If it is admin only, this call will execute. If not, what will happen? It will reject a 403 here itself. It won't even reach the controller. So answer is to apply a logic before or after the controller execution. Depends on what you use, but this is the right answer. All right. Next, these are the levels of questions that we took. If you know the concept, that will be very great. And I'm going to say all good, but you provide your honest feedback when you take up the test. Okay, for any test that you take, please provide honest feedback. I'll be able to cross check what you gave and I'll improve it. Okay, exam is finished. I can go here. I can check this exam here. Great, all the answers were correct. Let's go back. You can also do one thing. If you're in a practice mode, you can come here and you can actually review it. You can also expand this. You can review what you selected. Even if you go wrong, it will tell you what is wrong. Alright, so this is how you do, and at the end of the question it will always take you to the main page. Here you go, last one. Alright, so you can come here, you can choose whatever you want. You can write as many exams as you want, but the whole idea of this interview video is to explain the concept precisely and to help you tell by yourself. That's very important in interview to clear. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, just hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, share this with your friends and in social media, help grow this channel. And if you have any specific questions or comments, just let me know in the comment section. And stay tuned, I'll have more videos coming up on the interview side. I'll help you clear the interviews. Stay tuned and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!